The night air was thick with the kind of silence that only the desert could produce, an endless, suffocating quiet broken only by the soft hum of tires on asphalt. The couple, Ryan and Leah, had been driving for 10 hours straight through a stretch of Nevada highway that seemed to go on forever. Their phone signals had vanished hours ago, and the GPS screen had frozen on a blue arrow pointing nowhere. As the fuel gauge dipped below empty, they spotted the faint glow of neon lights ahead, red letters flickering through the darkness, gas, food, rest. It was the first sign of life they'd seen in miles, and despite the creeping unease in their guts, they pulled in. The station was small, old, and looked abandoned at first glance. Only one of the fluorescent bulbs above the pumps was still buzzing weakly, casting a jaundiced halo across the cracked pavement. A hand-painted sign on the door read "Open," but the interior was pitch black except for the faint glow of a vending machine deep inside. Ryan turned off the engine, and for the first time, the silence felt like a living thing, thick and watching. Leah whispered, "Let's just get gas and go." When Ryan stepped out, his footsteps echoed far too loudly. The pump clicked but no fuel came out. He walked toward the glass door, peering inside. The counter was cluttered with dusty trinkets, faded postcards, and a row of old Polaroids pinned behind the register, pictures of smiling travelers, all posing in front of the same gas pumps they now stood beside. But there was something off about the photos. The faces were wrong. Every person's eyes looked slightly blurred, as if they had moved at the moment of the shot. Yet the rest of their bodies were still, perfectly posed. Leah called out softly from the car, her voice trembling, "Ryan, let's just leave." That's when the lights inside flickered once, then steadied. A tall, gaunt man appeared behind the counter, his pale skin stretched thin over sharp cheekbones. He smiled too widely, the expression pulling at the corners of his mouth like it hurt. "Pump 4 works," he said in a flat, mechanical tone. Ryan nodded, startled by how silently the man had appeared. He returned to the car and tried the other pump. This time, the handle clicked and the gas began to flow. Leah kept watching the man through the windshield, noticing how he didn't move. He stood perfectly still, hands resting on the counter, eyes unblinking. The radio in the car sputtered with static before a faint voice whispered through, "Leave before it's too late." Leah twisted the dial, but the voice was gone. When Ryan went back inside to pay, the air felt colder. The man was still standing there, but now all the Polaroids were gone from the wall. Instead, there were fresh ones spread across the counter. Ryan froze. They were of him and Leah, taken from outside the car, just minutes ago. "Who took these?" he asked, his voice cracking. The man's smile twitched wider. "Everyone leaves their mark here," he murmured. "It's tradition." Ryan grabbed Leah's hand and they bolted back to the car. The headlights blinked on by themselves, illuminating a row of figures standing just beyond the light, motionless, pale silhouettes watching them from the desert. Ryan hit the gas, tires screeching, sand flying. As the station vanished in the rearview mirror, the radio crackled again with that same whisper, "Mile marker 198, you won't make it that far." They drove in silence for nearly an hour after leaving the gas station, both too shaken to speak. The road was a long black ribbon stretched across an empty desert, no signs, no landmarks, not even the faintest trace of another vehicle. Leah kept glancing in the rearview mirror, half expecting to see headlights behind them. There were none. The only light came from their own beams cutting through the endless dark. The desert seemed to swallow everything, even sound. The hum of the engine grew hypnotic until Ryan's eyelids began to droop. Leah nudged him awake, her voice tight. "Don't you dare fall asleep now." But her words trembled with something else, fear she couldn't quite explain. Why at first, Leah thought she was imagining it, the faint reflection of something in the back seat, just a flicker in the mirror. She turned around quickly, heart hammering, but the seat was empty. She told herself it was the shadows, the dim interior light playing tricks. But when she looked back at the mirror, she saw it again. This time, she was sure, a face. Pale, almost colorless, sitting upright behind them. It was a woman's face, framed by dripping strands of dark hair, her eyes open and fixed directly on Leah's. "Ryan," she whispered, barely able to breathe, "there's someone in the back seat." Ryan laughed weakly, trying to dismiss it. "You're seeing things. You're just spooked from that gas station." But his smile faltered when he saw her expression, frozen in pure terror. Slowly, he glanced in the rearview mirror. The back seat looked empty, until he realized the headrest was casting no shadow. He turned around fully, and saw nothing. Just an empty seat. But the moment he faced forward again, the mirror caught something moving in the dark reflection. The woman's pale face was closer now, her mouth slightly open as though whispering something inaudible. Leah screamed, and Ryan slammed on the brakes. The car skidded, spinning sideways before halting on the shoulder. Dust enveloped them in a choking cloud. When it cleared, the woman was gone. They sat there shaking, the desert silent once more. Ryan got out, shining his phone flashlight into the back seat. Nothing. The windows were fogged from the inside, streaked with long smears as if something had dragged its fingers across the glass. He climbed back in, his hands trembling. "We just need to make it to a town," he said, starting the engine again. Leah stayed quiet, clutching her knees, whispering to herself. She was sitting right there. I saw her eyes. Ryan pressed the gas pedal, and they drove on. The car's dashboard clock blinked 3:03 a.m., the same time it had shown since they'd left the gas station. 20 minutes later, Leah began to calm down, until the car's interior light flickered on for no reason. The overhead bulb glowed faintly, revealing a wet footprint on the back seat. One. Then another. Then a third, as if someone invisible were moving forward between them. The smell of damp earth filled the air, and Leah turned slowly toward Ryan. He didn't look back, his eyes locked on the road ahead, his voice a whisper, "Don't look in the mirror." She did anyway, and saw the woman sitting directly behind them now, smiling, her mouth forming silent words that didn't match her expression. As the headlights caught a sign reading, "Welcome to Blackridge, population 147, Leah saw the woman's reflection vanish. But the smell of wet soil lingered, and in the mirror, the faintest outline of a face remained, smudged against the glass, as though pressed from the inside. By the time Ryan and Leah reached the edge of Blackridge, dawn was still nowhere in sight. The town sat under a permanent haze, as if the desert dust had settled over it decades ago and never lifted. Every building looked worn and colorless, old storefronts with faded signs, broken neon lights, and windows clouded with grime. The streets were empty. Not even a stray dog. As their headlights swept across the cracked main road, they spotted a flickering sign up ahead, Sunset Vista Motel, vacancy. It was the only sign of shelter for miles, and despite every warning in their guts, they turned in. The motel was a two-story structure shaped like a horseshoe, with half the windows dark and the other half glowing a sickly yellow. A tall, slender man stood behind the front desk inside the office, his hair slicked back, wearing a dusty bellhop's uniform that looked decades out of date. He greeted them with a faint smile. "Rough night on the road?" he asked, his voice unusually calm. Leah didn't answer. Ryan nodded, trying to sound composed. "Yeah, just need a room for a few hours." The man slid a key across the counter, an old brass one labeled Room 9, and said quietly, "Breakfast starts at dawn. If you're still here by then." They carried their bags to the room. The corridor leading to Room 9 was lined with old photographs, black and white shots of travelers standing in front of the motel through the years. Leah noticed something strange about them. Each photo had the same people appearing again and again in different years, unchanged. The same clerk, the same smiling woman holding a key, even the same little boy standing by the railing. Their clothes aged, but their faces never did. She felt a chill crawl up her spine as they unlocked their door. Inside, the air was thick and humid. The wallpaper was peeling, the carpet damp, and the smell of old water clung to everything. They showered, hoping to wash off the unease. When Ryan stepped out of the bathroom, Leah was sitting on the bed, staring at the mirror on the wall. "Ryan," she whispered, "come here." In the reflection, their room looked different. The bed was empty, the wallpaper torn away, revealing black mold underneath. A dark shape stood in the corner, motionless. Ryan turned to look, nothing was there. When he looked back at the mirror, the shape was closer. Leah's reflection began to smile, though she wasn't. Her lips trembled, but the reflection grinned wide, teeth bared. "Let's go," Ryan said sharply, grabbing her arm. They rushed for the door, but when he pulled it open, the hallway outside was gone, replaced by an empty desert landscape under a blood-red sky. Panicking, they slammed the door shut. A knock echoed immediately on the other side. Then another. The third was harder. Leah backed away, clutching her chest, whispering a prayer. The doorknob turned slowly. Ryan lunged forward, locking it, but something pushed back. Then, just as suddenly, silence. He pressed his ear to the door, and heard faint whispers, like voices speaking underwater. He couldn't make out the words, but he recognized the rhythm. It was the same voice from the radio at the gas station. Leah turned toward the mirror again, trembling. The reflection showed the door swinging open behind them. She screamed, and when Ryan spun around, the door was indeed wide open. The hallway had returned, but the light outside was now daylight. They stepped out into the corridor, blinking at the morning glow, and saw the motel clerk standing at the end, smiling faintly. "Breakfast is ready," he said softly. You made it through the night. The diner sat across from the motel, its neon sign flickering weakly against the pale morning sky, Black Ridge Cafe. The light outside had a strange tint, a dull reddish hue that made the world feel off balance. Ryan and Leah hadn't spoken since leaving their room. Their nerves were raw, their exhaustion heavy. But as they stepped into the diner, the warm scent of coffee and bacon made them almost believe that things were normal again. Almost. The moment they crossed the threshold, the bell over the door gave a hollow ring, the kind that didn't sound mechanical, but alive, like it was breathing. Inside, the diner was old-fashioned, frozen in time. Vinyl booths, checkered floors, and framed photos of old cars and desert sunsets lined the walls. A waitress in a faded pink uniform approached them, her smile tight, her eyes unblinking. "Sit anywhere you like," she said in a syrupy tone. Ryan chose a booth near the window. The few other customers, an elderly couple, 2 truckers, and a young girl, sat eerily still, eating in silence. None of them looked up. Leah tried to shake off the discomfort. "See," she whispered. "Normal." But when she looked closer at the old couple, her stomach turned. Their plates were empty. Forks and knives moved mechanically to their lips, but there was no food, only the slow motion of chewing. As if following a forgotten habit, the waitress returned with coffee, placing the mugs on the table with trembling hands. "You two checked into the Sunset Vista last night, didn't you?" she asked casually. Ryan froze. "Yeah. How'd you know that?" The waitress smiled wider, her teeth too straight, too uniform. "Everyone who comes through does. You're lucky to make it to breakfast." She leaned closer, lowering her voice. "Don't stay past noon. The road disappears after that." Leah frowned. "Disappears?" But before she could ask more, the waitress turned sharply and walked back toward the counter. Ryan looked around. The other patrons were all staring at them now, their heads slowly turning in unison, eyes dull and glassy like mannequins. The girl in the corner giggled softly, her face pale. "They don't like it when you leave early," she said. Suddenly, the diner lights flickered. The sound of silverware clattering echoed around them as all the patrons stood up at once, moving in stiff, jerky motions. Their faces were calm, but their movements were wrong, like puppets tugged by unseen strings. The waitress stepped forward, her smile frozen. "You shouldn't have come here," she whispered. Ryan grabbed Leah's hand and bolted for the door. As they ran outside, the town looked different. The sky was darker again, tinted orange like a sunset that had stopped mid-descent. The streets were full of still figures, people just standing, facing the motel, not moving, not blinking. Every window in every building reflected the same scene, the two of them running. They sprinted to the car. The engine coughed, then roared to life. Ryan slammed the gas pedal, tires screeching on the cracked pavement. Leah looked back. The townsfolk were now walking slowly toward the road, every single one of them moving in sync, faces tilted upward, mouths open in silent screams. As they sped past the "Leaving Black Ridge" sign, the town behind them shimmered like heat waves, fading into nothing but dust and sagebrush. Leah looked at the map spread across her lap. There was no Black Ridge marked anywhere, not on Highway 50, not on any road. She turned to Ryan, her voice breaking. "We didn't leave, did we?" And at that moment, the diner's bell sound, that hollow, breathing chime, echoed faintly through the car, though the town was already gone. The desert stretched endlessly before them, silent, colorless, eternal. The further Ryan and Leah drove, the more unreal the world began to feel. The highway wound ahead like a snake, rising and falling over low dunes of dust and dead grass. But there was something wrong. The sun refused to move, frozen just above the horizon, bathing everything in an orange half-light. No matter how far they drove, the shadows on the sand stayed the same. The odometer ticked higher, but the mile markers didn't change. Ryan swore he'd passed mile marker 204, but now, in the distance, he saw 197 again, the same one they'd left behind near the gas station. Leah's hands were shaking as she traced the map on her lap for the 100th time. "Ryan, this can't be right. We've been heading west the whole time." Her voice cracked. "We should have hit Fallon hours ago." Ryan didn't answer. His focus was razor-sharp, jaw locked, knuckles white on the steering wheel. The radio, long dead since the gas station, began to whisper again, faint static at first, then that same voice they'd heard before. "You can't leave. The road remembers." The headlights flickered even though it was still daylight. Ahead, the highway shimmered, bending and warping like heat mirage. Then, without warning, the road simply ended, cut clean into the sand, as if the asphalt had been sliced away by something enormous. Ryan slammed the brakes, stopping inches from the abrupt drop. Beyond the edge, there was nothing, just a massive expanse of white desert, flat and infinite, stretching under the burning sky. The air was silent, too still. Leah opened the door and stepped out, the sand crunching under her shoes. It's like the world just stopped. She turned back toward the car, but her breath caught in her throat. The highway behind them was gone. It had vanished, replaced by the same white desert stretching in every direction. No tire tracks, no asphalt, nothing. Just them, the car, and an endless blank horizon. Ryan joined her, panic rising in his chest. "We're trapped," he whispered, then the sand began to move. Slowly at first, ripples spreading out like waves in water. Leah stumbled back, clutching Ryan's arm. Figures began to rise from the ground, first their heads, then shoulders, then their full bodies. Dozens of them, pale and silent, covered in dust. Their faces were familiar. Ryan recognized the motel clerk, the waitress, the couple from the diner. All of them stood motionless, their hollow eyes fixed on the two of them. Leah screamed when she saw herself among them, her own face emerging from the sand, mouth open, eyes glassy. Ryan grabbed her hand, dragging her back into the car, fumbling for the keys. But when he turned the ignition, the dashboard clock blinked 3:03 a.m. again, the same time that never changed. The ground began to shake. The pale figures stepped closer, forming a circle around the car. The radio crackled violently, the whisper now louder, overlapping voices repeating, "Mile marker 197, we never left." Leah looked out the window and saw it, the faint outline of the gas station ahead in the distance, glowing red in the heat. "Ryan," she whispered, tears streaming down her face, "we're back." The car lurched forward on its own, rolling toward the light, tires dragging through the sand as if pulled by invisible hands. The figures followed, their mouths now open in silent screams. As they approached the gas station, the neon sign flickered again, "Gas Food Rest." But this time, beneath it, a new word pulsed faintly in red, "Return." The gas station loomed larger with every forced roll of the car, its flickering neon lights cutting through the haze like blood through water. Ryan slammed the brakes, but the vehicle kept moving, pulled forward by some unseen gravity. Leah clutched his arm, sobbing, "Please, stop it, please." He twisted the key, desperate, but the ignition had gone cold beneath his fingers. The radio screamed with static, voices overlapping, crying, whispering, and laughing all at once. In that chaos, one voice rose above the rest, slow and deliberate, like someone standing just outside the window. "You made it back. Everyone does." The car finally stopped in front of Pump 4, the same one from before. The same cracked pavement. The same weak bulb buzzing overhead. The air smelled of rust and rot. Ryan stepped out first, his legs trembling. The ground beneath him felt soft, like wet clay. Leah followed, her eyes darting around wildly. The figures from the desert now stood at the edge of the light, forming a perfect ring around the station. They didn't move. They didn't breathe. They just watched. And behind the dusty glass of the storefront, the attendant was waiting, the tall, gaunt man, still smiling that too wide, too painful smile. "You forgot to pay," he said. Ryan's voice cracked. "We're leaving. We're done with this." The man tilted his head. "You can't leave. You're part of the road now." Leah stepped backward, shaking her head, tears streaking her face. "No, no, we didn't do anything." The man's expression softened, almost pitying. "Everyone says that. The road takes those who see too much." He gestured toward the photographs lining the walls inside. They were different now, hundreds of them, every traveler who had ever stopped here. Ryan and Leah were among them, frozen mid-scream. "It remembers everyone," the man whispered. "And now, it remembers you." The light flickered violently. The figures outside began to move, slowly closing in. Leah ran back to the car, pounding the locked doors, screaming Ryan's name. But when she looked inside, he wasn't there. She turned toward the station, and saw him standing inside with the attendant, both motionless, both smiling. Her body went numb. The sand around her feet began to ripple, swallowing her ankles, her legs. She screamed as the ground consumed her, dragging her down. Just before the sand reached her face, she saw something in the distance, a pair of headlights. Another car. Someone else driving toward the gas station. And then everything went dark. The next morning, the gas station was quiet again. The pumps were clean, the ground dry. The photos behind the counter had changed once more, a new pair added to the wall, smiling stiffly beneath the faded sign that read, "Pump 4, Customer of the Month." The attendant stood behind the glass, his smile never wavering as a new set of headlights appeared down the highway. He straightened his collar, looked at the photos, and whispered to himself, another mile, another memory. The neon sign buzzed faintly, the word "return" flickering to "open." The road, silent and endless, waited for its next traveler.